Chris Mertens. I'm co-founder and CEO of Blossom. And Blossom is a bartering marketplace that uses smart contracts to allow anyone to create sharing economies out of anything that can be connected to the internet. We're currently implementing our software in the energy industry by using Blossom as a person-to-person, business-to-person energy bartering marketplace. We're also tackling some other industries as well, but we're going to focus on energy for today. Before we dive in, I'd like to give a quick little background on smart contracts or smart agreements for probably the many people in the audience who are not familiar with the technology. A smart contract is just a digital agreement, the exact same thing as a normal standard physical agreement you would sign with other people, except it is virtual. And additionally, these agreements can link up with physical endpoints such as smart meters, EV charging stations, coffee machines, vehicles, metaphysical things like databases, anything really that you can think of, and make these agreements more efficient. Probably something that many of you may not be familiar with, you probably use smart agreements on a daily or if not very frequent basis with Uber, Airbnb, and Lyft. These are all simple or specific implementations of smart agreements, basically just allowing you to share your car or your home with other people. That's essentially what Blossom is. We're just trying to Uber, Airbnb-ify everything. So with that, I will go right into our program here. When my clicker's on, I will go into the problem. So first and foremost, right now, smart agreements are really, really difficult to use if you do not have a software development team. If you don't have a bunch of people working with you or a very, very experienced computer science, there we go. Mike's gonna be a little bit closer. Computer science experience, you can't really make much use of, if any at all, with smart agreements. You can't just like go out and build Uber, Airbnb. Second of all, there is huge potential as in the widespread adoption of these agreements. As I mentioned earlier, Uber, Airbnb, and Lyft, those are just one implementation of smart agreements, and we all seen how big those companies have gotten. They have hundreds of millions of users. And lastly, no active marketplace right now allows their users to create custom smart agreements with other users on the platform. It's just kind of these single specific implementations. Although there are a few other companies in the space trying in their own ways to make this a possibility, no one's really established themselves yet as a market leader. So our solution to this problem is relatively simple. Make a platform where you can create custom contract terms with other people. Instead of just cars and homes, make it able to trade everything. Second of all, you should be able to easily connect with others on this platform. For example, I can open Uber right now on my phone and instantly find a driver to take me wherever I want. It should be the same way with everything else. Additionally, you should be able to build bartering networks out of the people that you interact with on this platform. Because there's multiple different industries involved on the same software, you kind of got to be able to do things in different ways, which leads me to my last point. Users should be able to trade without limitations on the platform. So just going beyond cash transactions is kind of what we're trying to do. So instead of just paying someone to give you a ride for somewhere, maybe I really want ice cream at that given point in time. I will pay you, or I will give you a ride somewhere if you give me some ice cream. Another example, I have excess energy, and I want to pay for my dentist appointment. Those are the kinds of possibilities that we're trying to make possible on our platform. We are a blockchain solution. Smart contracts inherently are. Usually those kinds of companies are associated with an ICO or some kind of cryptocurrency. We are not. We went the crypto agnostic route. We developed an IBM Hyperledger, which kind of allows us to do that. We instead base the value of our agreements in the industries that we support, which is why the meat of this presentation will now be about the energy industry, because that is our first industry. So what you're probably wondering is why energy? Why did we start there when we want to do everything else? The short answer is we got into the Amarin accelerator. The long answer is that we found out that utilities have a really big problem right now in the fact that I'm missing a thing there. In the fact that they are not able right now to manage this growing influx of people using renewable energy, like solar panels, windmills, and other renewable generation sources on the front end. Basically, there's used to, for the past 50 to 100 years, dealing in large energy transactions, big bulk, over 100 megawatts, gigawatt hour blocks of energy. they can't really deal with this small amount of energy coming on from people, for example, generating more than they're consuming on the residential level. And what this winds up doing is creating something called stranded power, which is basically just energy that's sitting on the grid and it's completely wasted. As a reference, a University of Chicago study showed that in the MISO grid, which is where we're at in the center of the country and the center of Canada, there is over 15 terawatt hours of energy stranded every year, which equates to about $400 million in just completely wasted value on the front end every year. So additionally, this is left unchecked. Some other studies by like 2025 or 2030, if it's left just as it is, we'll start blowing lines, start overloading grids. So this could become a very serious problem really quickly, and utilities really realize this. So, like I said, we were part of the Amarin Accelerator, went through that, kind of built our solution with them, engaged in a market study with them as well, kind of check out the market viability of the transactive energy market that we're talking about, found out people are really interested in it. People really like the idea of going beyond the standard utility monopoly for selling your energy back onto the grid. Around that time as well, we engaged with the community solar partner, which is kind of the way that we're starting to roll out our product in the energy industry. And they are like I said, community solar installer from Germany. We're working with them to allow their end users, the people that they install solar for, to trade energy with people in the communities. So it's a really cool marketing and just general overall energy play for any business that has the ability to install some solar. So the market size, the market that we're talking about here is pretty big. We're attacking the demand response market, which globally was at 5.57 billion as of 2014. It's going to grow to 35.9 billion by 2025. North America, the market was at 3.7 billion as of 2014. That's expected to grow to 18 billion by 2022. And in MISO, like I said, the big grid operator for our portion of the country, renewably sourced generation is going to grow to by 50 gigawatts by 2030. So this problem that I'm talking about in this technology is only going to become way more important moving into the future, and very quickly so, if I might add. So our product is, and how we actually take care of this solution is best explained with an example. So like you guys consider a user that we have totally made up. Her name is Sarah Solar. She's generating more energy than she's consuming, and she would like to sell it. So how does she do that? She would just log onto our platform. She would use our agreement creation wizard to make a custom agreement to sell energy. She would post it onto our marketplace, and then she would be matched with, in this case, Wendell Windmill, who wants to buy our energy. That's really it. It's a pretty simple process. Like I said, we're trying to take this complex idea and bring it down to a usable level. So how exactly do we trade energy? The simple answer is that we don't. All that we do, like I said, is we link into the endpoints, the smart meters at the users' homes, and take their commands, take what they want to do, and then we relay that information back to the utility, who transacts the energy and transmits it as they normally would. We're just a thin software layer that kind of sits on top of what the utility is already doing, and we don't really change their daily actions very much, just make them much more efficient. So our business model is pretty simple. We integrate directly with utilities at the top level, and then through that we can access their consumer base. Users and utilities, businesses, anyone can engage directly on our platform, but we do have to integrate directly with utilities to make sure that energy can be transferred. In the same way that we can link up consumers through the utility, we also believe we can link up utilities in this same fashion, just by kind of taking commands of what one utility wants to do and relaying that to the other. To charge for our services, we charge a 5% fee per transaction. Pretty simple, and that's it. So this is kind of our solution for the energy industry, as I said. But the cool thing about the way that we built the platform is that we can do this exact same thing, this exact same type of, we're sitting on top of an existing exchange method, and apply this to any other industry as well, like healthcare, ride-home sharing, agriculture, music, logistics, really anything that you can think of, and basically create this inter-industry trading post where people of any industry, any trade, any skill, anyone who has anything can exchange with anyone else on the same place. Our competition in this space and organized onto a nice Cartesian grid. The main point, I'm going a little bit long here, so I won't dive into this too much, but the main point here is that really no one else is tackling the same problem that we are. We have some competitors in the energy space, a handful of them, that are also tackling transactive energy, but in terms of creating a holistic marketplace for smart contracts, we're kind of alone. Slockit is sort of that, but in a more physical sense, like I said earlier, with coffee makers and stuff, physical IoT items, you can connect the Slockit app and turn them into things that other people can use. But in terms of generality, we have everyone beat, which brings me to why we're better than all those guys. First of all, is our generality. We're the only ones that are tackling a solution that is as big and as broad as we are, and we think that gives us an advantage of the solutions that we can create on our platform. Second of all is our simplicity. We're making this technology. All right. Well, my mic went out, so I'm gonna be loud.
Do you want me to give you mine?
Is it back? No, I can. Here you go.
Yeah.
No one hear me?
Yeah, no. Give you mine.
Sorry about that, guys. Oh, hey, it's a little louder. So yeah, second of all is our simplicity. We're making these powerful agreements really easy to use. Lastly is our security. We are patent pending on our own internal methods of system communication. We're also using an encryption that is infinitely better than current standards. As an example, if you were to take the probability of finding one atom in the universe as cracking current industry standards, the probability of you cracking CRL, the encryption that we use, is make every atom in the universe its own universe and then pick that same atom again. So very, very much safe. More safe than current standards. So our team, very small. It's just me. I am Chris Mertens, co-founder and CEO, graduated from WashU with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. Got my co-founder and CTO, Joe Gardner. He also graduated from WashU with a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and a second major in Finance. And our COO, Ken Harold, steeped in startup knowledge, been a mentor for capital innovators for over 90 startups, co-founded the startup Within, and Thoughtware LLC, also the current CTO of Celebrity, dude knows his stuff. So right now, we're kind of currently preparing for launch, to launch our product with our community solar provider mainly, and also kind of discussing with Ameren. We hope to have that done by August of 2019, launch with them at a few locations, and then by January 2020, we hope to start expanding and integrate into more Go Solar locations, as well as start working with other utility providers. We're fundraising $250,000 for seed funding. Throughout this process, we want to make some hires, establish our sales and marketing cycle, and kind of get things set up once we are ready to launch. So that is it. Thank you guys very much. Really appreciate you being out and for having us out.
I think we got the microphone working again, so please wait for the microphone to ask your questions.
Great presentation. One question. I see your vision as far as like doing it within the industry, but
Just yell.
yeah. So I see it within the industry, but when you think about like energy, now it's more becoming where people can actually generate energy themselves from their homes.
Yep.
So when you think about your vision, how are you trying to also play in that space where people, like individuals, can send energy, and make money? Like, are you thinking about that space, or just trying to keep it between like within the industry energy sector?
So I'm not sure if I understand your question.
So it's becoming more distributed, where it's like I don't need the energy company now to give me energy, but now I can actually send it from person to person instead of the energy company. And now there's solutions being created to kind of do that, kind of help cater to that distributed energy sector. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think I understand what you're saying now. So basically, we're looking at the fact that utilities aren't really going to go away anytime soon.
Okay.
So what we found out through the accelerator is that many utilities actually, to keep themselves alive, because they know that distributed generation is already a thing, and it's only growing, it's only becoming bigger. So they're kind of trying to reshape their roles as to what they actually do. And many utilities act like Ameren, they've quit generating in Illinois. They don't want to do any generation on the front end. They don't really want to deal with the front end of the energy grid. They just want to be kind of like an ISP, sort of like the lines, the people that just move the energy from point one to point A to point B. And they would have a part in that with like a small transmission distribution fee, but it would just be like a flat rate fee. And we would kind of be that front end of the energy grid, so to speak. So in terms of the other competitors who are, there are people like LO3, Power Ledger, Grid Plus, a few others, and they're basically kind of what you're talking about, I think, which is more holistic solutions. They have their own meters, they lay their own lines, they actually transact the energy, set up all of the assets and stuff. They're basically a utility in and of themselves. We're trying to be a little bit more lightweight than that. So that's kind of what we're thinking of. But we could, in the future, if they become a bigger thing, we could easily integrate with them the same exact way that we're integrating with utilities right now.
All right, try it again.
Hello. I got two questions, but they kind of, one is, in Chicago, ComEd did the same type thing, where some of the smaller utilities like U.S. Energy took over the clients as far as building and stuff like that. And so is that what you would take on as the service company as opposed to the provider? Like ComEd was the utility provider. They use their structure, their infrastructure, but these other companies are coming in, being you pay the bill to them, they would come out and service you, but they wasn't the provider. Is that what you're doing?
So, kind of. In the fact that we are basically just facilitating these types of transactions and making them possible. So in that case, you would still be ultimately paying ComEd. You would just be going through us to do that, because right now, if you want to exchange energy, with your neighbor, for example, the only way to do that is to call up, and I don't even know if other utilities but Ameren can do this. We just talked with Ameren about this specifically. You can call Ameren and you can say, I want to take credit for X amount, for 50 kilowatt hours of this person's generation. And then you can settle outside, you're paying Ameren for that energy, but then you can settle outside of that with that person to pay you back however you want. So it's like very, very loose in short. So that's kind of, our spot on that.
Okay, and then the second was I saw you that one customer can sell it to another customer. But they have to come to you now. Is that just one customer to another, or can you do that on a large scale? Like if we put solar on top of a big box store and we sell to the neighborhood.
Yep.
You could do it that way too.
That's actually one of our big sells right now, and talking to potential customers is that, hey, if you're a business like car dealership, like IKEA has I think 2 megawatts of solar on top of their building. That's kind of it's the same idea as Anheuser-Busch's brewed by veterans for veterans. You could say, hey, we're providing you with this service, like IKEA is providing the community with all of their houseware and furniture and stuff, and we're also selling energy. So yes, to answer your question.
Great presentation, Chris.
Thank you.
So essentially, you are currently using established grids as transport for your information to be able to exchange among people in the energy sector. Will you be ultimately creating your own grid for things like barter transmissions or those other kinds of contracts? Because, if I want to have my Etsy shop, for example, exchange for something else, Also, I think there's already a couple of burner organizations out there nationally that you could tap into.
Yeah, in short, yes. So that's kind of what we want to do in a virtual sense. So, like essentially our energy platform is like a virtual microgrid. We're linking up, endpoints in a virtual sense so that people on the physical end can fulfill these types of, fulfill basically the transaction that we've made virtually. So yes, absolutely, that's kind of what I was talking about when I said building bartering networks of people, basically virtual grids of, hey, I'm connected to this person and this person and this person through this sale and this exchange and this trade, and these different types of things. So short answer is yes, absolutely.
More questions? I'm going to take the next one. So I do have it seems to me like you're kind of splintering off into two directions, and I want to ask how you're going to handle that. And the reason why I say that is because you're very smart to go after energy, because energy and money are both very fungible. They're interchangeable practically within their own systems. And so,
Sure.
I mean, it's like you're going to make if you do what you say you're going to do, you're going to make a lot of money just going after the energy side of it. But the question is, at some point you think someone like Ameren or another large company, some utility is going to come in and say, we just want to buy you. And then what do you do then when your ambitions are, quite frankly, everything? And so how do you I think for the thin edge of the wedge, you're very smart to go after the energy, but how do you not just become purely an energy company and be able to get to these large ambitions? Because you're right, this is potentially very revolutionary in a lot of different industries.
Well, thanks a lot, Joe. Appreciate it. To answer your question, first of all, Ameren has been awesome in the fact that they have repeatedly said, like, hey, energy might not be your beachhead market. We're not 100% sure. This is too new for us to tell. And B, go anywhere else that you want. If there's a different utility that can connect you guys better to the goals that you're trying to do, let us know, and we'll get you guys connected with them. So that's been cool for the energy industry, just not be tied down at all, really, by Ameren. Second of all, and more to your question, is we're actively developing right now in other industries, or trying to get into other industries as well. We have a project that we're working on with a group called iNeighborhoods. They're a smart city sort of planner developer that we've been working with for the past 2 years, basically, where we'd be using Blossom as sort of if you can imagine a smart city as a layer cake of different organizations and different systems, technologies, sensors, and whatnot that need to talk to each other, we're kind of frosting on that cake. So, we just transmit data. We facilitate the exchange of data between one point to the other, and we involve, some physical systems along the way. So that's really going to be powerful for, we think, for smart city applications, talking to each other in different, organizations in the city, in the ideal smart city, talking to each other and making that process much more efficient. We're also taking a look at the drone industry. That's basically in the idea of contracting different pilots and disseminating information from point A to point B. Super early development still, though, so don't want to say too terribly much about that one. But point being that we're actively trying to, before energy, kind of becomes our sort of moniker, we want to make it known that, hey, we're doing this stuff too, at the very least.
So I was just wondering, do you know about how much surplus energy an average home with like solar panels, say, produces, like maybe per month? Like that they can sell or use with the Blossom platform?
That is a great question. I haven't gotten that question in a long time, and I don't remember exactly how much. But on average, residentially, it's not a whole lot, to be completely honest with you, which is why we're kind of looking more so at corporate and industrial. They produce, I think, 72% of the North American renewable generation, but that's about to change really quickly. The tide's kind of about to shift sort of around 2030 to 2040. So basically, in short, it's not that much on an individual scale, but once the number of people that are over-generating, that are generating renewables in general, grows, then it's going to kind of become a bigger factor.
Well, because I was just looking at this, and It's like, I think 12 cents, the cost of energy is like 12 cents per kilowatt hour or something, and I'm just not sure, like, is this something, because your example was like of two people, got their names, but something like Sandy
matter.
Solar or whatever. Like, I'm just not sure, is somebody, let's just say they overgenerate by 20 kilowatt hours, I have no idea if that's a reasonable amount or not, but then that's like not very much money and they can't really do anything with that. So are they really gonna wanna use Blossom's platform to, like, you know, use $2 or something, or, you know, 20
I mean,
cents?
for someone that has, you know, invested in renewable technology, you know, bought solar panels or anything right now, if you overgenerate, your only option is to curtail that back to Ameren for pennies on the dollar. Like, they pay you, and they admit this, they pay you intentionally a super small amount of money because of what I said, basically describing the problem in the energy industry, which is that they don't have a way to manage that. Whenever you push energy back on the grid, they're like, okay, we have to deal with this now. So they intentionally pay you not a whole, it's like 1 to 2 cents per kilowatt hour, if that. So basically, it's a way to get a way better ROI on your green energy because people already pay premiums for green energy around the country. There are people that pay more money for, you know, to have renewably sourced energy in many different utilities. So it's not a very far stretch to say that, hey, if I'm getting energy from my neighbor, I would be willing to pay a premium on that. There's also ways that you could get energy cheaper potentially through us, just generally based on the fact that you can do arbitrage types of techniques on it, basically creating sort of stock market for energy. So if you really want to, you can buy a whole lot of energy from someone who's producing it and has a solar farm of, you know, 150 megawatts somewhere and producing it really cheap, buy all that energy and then sell it to, you know, other people.
So this isn't necessarily going to be, because even so, like, you know, yes, I'd rather sell it for, you know, $2.20, where like the Ameren would buy it for 20 cents. I want to sell it for $2, but still, like, this wouldn't necessarily then be like a resident, like just a normal guy with solar panels on his roof selling to another person without solar panels, but wanting to get electricity or having some service that they want to exchange. Because I mean, in the end, $2 per month is, you know, maybe you can get a cup of coffee per month with that amount of money. It's gonna be, you think it's gonna be more like as you said, like an industrial, like maybe somebody who has like this big solar farm trying to sell it, and instead of selling it to the grid, selling it to like directly to customers or something like that, or?
Yeah. So right now, yeah, that's what I would say. I think that in the future, though, it's definitely going to change because just given the current scale of, you know, and, you know, the sheer amount of people that have renewable energy right now, it's like really not a whole lot compared to the majority, you know. So that's kind of what we're seeing in the disparity between, you know, corporate generation and residential generation, just because, you know, people don't have the sheer numbers to match up to the capacity that a, you know, corporate and industrial sector can create. But once that tide shifts, and once there are enough people to, you know, have the overall and cumulative capacity to combat, so, you know, oh hey, we have 1 million people here with like 300 gigawatts of capacity over like 2,000 square miles, say, then that becomes really and way more powerful than any one corporation, because then you can say, okay, we have 1 million people here, and you can honestly put that into one smart contract, and you can have, you know, a community style profile, so to speak, and have community generation on a virtual sort of microgrid.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good presentation, Chris.
Thank you.
Curious, to go back to your scenario where Sarah Solar is selling, tongue twister, Sarah Solar is selling energy to Wendell Windmill. So say she sells him, you know, 20 kilowatts, whatever, and she, in order, would prefer to have pizza, right?
Sure.
How do you determine what 5% transactional cost is on that transaction?
Sure. So what we're doing is basically taking the so it's kind of a stratification to calculate that, basically saying that, okay, this amount of energy is worth this much right now, and this pizza is worth this much right now, and that's kind of the cost of that transaction. That's sort of the method that we've figured out right now, and obviously we're going to adapt and develop that as we, kind of get into that scenario. But that's sort of what we're thinking right now, is basically just stratify the value of the transaction into dollars at some point, because you can, and then take that as the percentage.
I think you bring up an excellent point about the difficulties of bartering systems. So probably reevaluate your economic theory about why bartering systems have their limitations. For one being, they keep networks small, and small networks can get dumber with time. So the ideal thing for a market actor is to be as connected to the biggest network as possible. And also the idea of that some of the gentlemen brought up about the low cost or the low value of energy, putting it back into the grid. So the economic theory of specialization and why firms exist, because these are the things that you're looking to combat and disrupt. But I think you need to reevaluate or begin to analyze the direction that you're trying to push these markets. So I guess that my question is, how do you foresee trying to push away from a cash system, which is very flexible? I can just turn my product into cash and I can spend it anywhere. Why would it be the value of bartering? So that's a simple question.
Yeah, definitely. We're not necessarily trying to push away from cash. Apologize if I gave that impression, but we're just mainly more so trying to add these other options back into the conversation, and make it a possibility. Like I said, we're still going to be accepting cash on our platform. We are going to, we're cryptocurrency agnostic, but we are planning on implementing ways that you can pay with cryptocurrencies, and basically just making the entire conversation around an exchange more than just how much are you going to pay me. What could you give me? What do I want right now? How can we make this exchange more interesting, basically?
But another question, if you don't mind, to follow up to to the gentleman's question over there, kind of conversation you guys were having. I think the question is, $2 a month. Well, no, it doesn't cost. It's not going to do anything for me. It's not going to change my life. The question really is are you? And I start working through a scenario in my mind. Are you going to Are you there on the front end installers to basically tell the installers, to tell people what you need to do is integrate into at the very front end, so people don't even have to think about it. So $2 just shows up. If I can just have $2 show up in my pocket, I don't care that it's $2. I'm happy I have $2 showing up.
Yep.
If I have to do something, if I have to sit there and make the exchanges and work something to get $2, not going to happen in a million years. Nobody's going to do that. So could you talk about that, kind of the integration for something how you make it as easy as possible, because everyone wants free money, but no one wants to work for $2.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're working on one of the first things that we're planning on doing after we close our seed round is implementing an machine learning and AI algorithm to basically take care of all of that trading for you, kind of automate it to the point where you can build a profile, so to speak, on Blossom of how you want to trade with other people, based on your resources that you have. So essentially we want to make it a sliding bar of interaction of, all the way down is AI off, I'm manually doing all of my trading, I don't have anything do anything for me, to all the way on, which is I've set up these parameters and it's going to trade automatically for me and I don't have to touch it. So that's kind of that's the end goal there, is making completely automated trading to where you can, just sit there and oh, hey, 2 cents popped into my bank account, and you're happy about that because you didn't have to do anything.
Can you talk a little bit about your raise? You said 250. Why 250? And I had previously raised. I know you went through the Abraham Accelerator. Can you talk a little bit about your raise?
Yeah, definitely. So we did get some funding through the accelerator. That is our only funding right now. And the 250 raise is basically to make one, maybe two hires. We need, like I said, basically the team is just Joe and I right now. We've been doing this on our own for 2 years, and well, longer than that with other stuff, but Blossom for 2 years. So we really need another developer, and ideally sort of sales and marketing person as well to sort of basically back up the team. Aside from that, we haven't really done much at all in terms of sales cycle and marketing. Just again, based on the workload that we're able to deal with. So we really like to ramp those things up once we launch. And that's pretty much it. There's some developmental costs involved in that, but that kind of takes care of that. Basically, that would give us runway for, I think, 12 months what we worked out. So be a good way for us to jump in the market.
All right, I'm going to take the last question. So what can the community do for you? Why are you here?
I mean, honestly, this is it. We love the opportunity to come out and pitch and talk with everyone in the community, and hear all of your opinions on what we're doing. We learn and take something away from every type of interaction we have like this. And yeah, I mean, if you guys see us around, use us. We love it, and that's pretty much it. Thanks so much for having us out, guys.
All right, thank you very much.